All right, we're on. Good morning, Wim. How are you, my friend?
I'm fine, Antoine. Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thank you very much.
Me too, Wim. It's really a pleasure for you to speak to you today after meeting you originally quite a while ago. Let me just do a brief intro of you, sort of how we met and what I know about you. So for everyone watching, this is Wim Rombaut. Wim and I met back in 2014, 2015, I think it was. The company I was working for at that time hired Wim to come in and act as a performance coach, facilitator, team building for the executive team. I immediately hit it off with Wim because what I noticed about his style of training and the format incorporated not just sessions, workshops where we were talking, but there was quite a bit of physical sort of activity and physical contests that he incorporated into his training that, for me, being sort of a fitness guy the majority of my adult life, really resonated for me and made it much more fun and interesting. So it was like a 2 or 3 day event. It was outdoors, it was indoors. We did lots of fun stuff, and I learned a lot through the experience. And it's been now obviously several years since we first met, but we've kept in touch. Obviously, Wim continues his business and his practice out of Belgium, where he was born and raised, and lives with his family. Obviously, I've continued on my path from a customer success and leadership journey, and I'm glad that after all these years, we've sort of maintained contact and everything's going well. So let me just pause there for a second. Wim, anything you want to add as far as who you are and how we met from your perspective? I'm curious, how you saw it and when we first met.
Great. Well, I remember that the CEO of that company was ringing my doorbell and asked me to coach him. He found me via internet already 7-8 years ago. Yeah. The guy said, look, I'm a growing company, 20 people on board, and for the moment they have 400 people on board, 7 years later. I was coaching him as an executive for leadership. He was a very good manager, but leadership was more important, and how to do that and so on. And then 2 years later, we met, Antoine, 1.5 years, because he invited me to facilitate the team, executive team. And that's how we met, and that's how we were working together on a mental and physical way, because I'm a strong believer that things work together better, and that the effect of the mental connection that you have, the discussions, is better when you also feel good in your body. And to feel good in your body, you have to do some movements and so on.
Yes, absolutely. Again, something I thought made your program very sort of unique and interesting. So let's talk about the coaching aspect of it. One of the 3 sort of components, I think you mentioned the foundation of your program is based on physical, mental, and would you say spiritual? Would that be the 3 sort of core tenets?
Yes, the spiritual, you can mention this. And I bring spiritual more in a personal level, in the emotional level. So I would call it mental, emotional, and physical.
Yeah. Okay.
And in the emotional component, of course, is spirituality very important. Yeah. Also to me, but also to the employees or the people that I coach.
And how did you sort of stumble upon this? Because I think oftentimes, in my opinion, not everyone sort of realizes the importance of all 3 equally. Maybe focus a lot on physical fitness, perhaps to the detriment maybe of the mental or the spiritual. And when I say spiritual, I don't mean religious. I think spiritual, we talk about sort of development of the self-awareness, etc. So, how did that happen for you? How did you sort of figure that out?
This was, of course, growing in my mind. I started psychology first, and after 1 year, they said to me, statistics, you will never make it. So I said, okay, I agree. And I go to sports education, and I became then a sport teacher. It's now 40 years ago, by the way. And then I started to combine it in my head. And in my journey to find more literature and also more articles about it, I found the book of Stephen, what did you say?
Oh,
Covey,
sure. Sure.
7 Habits of Effective Leadership.
Uh-huh.
And that was my Bible. In
Ah,
that time, I said, okay, sharpen the saw is the 7th habit. And I
uh-huh.
start with that. So,
Uh-huh.
and that is a combination. And Stephen Covey is talking about 4 levels: emotional and spiritual is divided.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, but for me, it's one.
Okay, so let me take a step back then, because you said a couple of things that I think are really fascinating. Um, number one, you mentioned you first started studying psychology in university, yeah, and then you switched to coaching, but yet you're able to sort of incorporate both now into sort of like your program. So that I find interesting because I myself am very, very interested in sort of psychology. And even though I didn't study it officially in school, I read a lot of books about psychology. First and foremost, to help develop myself as a person. But then as I became a leader, it helped me better understand why my team acted the way they did. And as a result, how could I coach and mentor them to sort of drive a certain behavior? So if you weren't studying it in school, psychology specifically, am I correct? You probably were reading books, or you were studying this on your own in parallel to your physical fitness education that you eventually got a degree in. Is that right?
Absolutely right. And that's also because someone was inspiring me. I had a teacher there, psychologist, and the first thing he asked me, why didn't you become a psychologist? I said, yeah, Jeff is his name, Jeff. Um, I was not able to become a psychologist because of statistics. Oh yeah, that's
Oh,
really
right.
stupid that they select people based on that.
Ah,
At that time, certainly the University of Leuven in Belgium
uh-huh.
was famous for that. But look, and Jeff told me, look, Wim, I can help you to become both. And so he did. And yeah, when I was doing my exams, I passed with the highest score. So he stimulated me already for that.
Okay. So you didn't pursue psychology because of statistics, math. So I didn't even know
Math.
math is a component of psychology, but okay, that's interesting because I probably would have dropped out as well because I don't like numbers, or I'm not good at it, I should say. I do like numbers, I'm just not good at it. It's statistics.
Okay.
Okay, so you then switched, you got eventually a degree in physical fitness, physical training, right?
Yeah, it's in my country, it was as a teacher. So I
Okay.
could go in schools, basic school and high school, to teach really physical education,
Okay.
different sports.
Okay, so did you know at that point that what you're doing now is essentially what you wanted to do? Or at that point was being a teacher again, either at a school or somewhere, sort of like what you were wanting to sort of do with your life? How soon did you know it?
I knew it when I was 17, I think. I was then playing water polo,
Yeah.
and they asked me to train a team of youngsters of 12 years old.
Yeah.
So I think I discovered my own talent as a trainer and a coach doing this. And then I said, I want to do that in the future, maybe not on a sports level, but that's what I like to do.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
training, teaching people who goes for the maximum that they can, the best version of themselves as a person and also as a team. So I was 17 at that moment, I knew it.
So you knew it at 17, and what do you think it was that made you sort of realize that? What is it that made that your calling? Was it your upbringing? Was it your parents, maybe somebody in school or a friend? Like, how did you sort of know? Because it sounds like you're passionate like I am about helping people, and how did you know that, or how do you think that happened within you?
Well, it was the head coach who asked me, and I was swimming and doing water polo in that team. And he said, look, I think you have the ability to do this. Do you want to do it, to try it? I have no experience. I was very young, to do this. But he said, those guys will help you to get experience. So let's start.
Yeah.
And then to answer your question, was really satisfying from the first minute I was standing across the water and not in the water myself. And I saw those guys having fun and going deep and giving it all. And this connection with them, to go for it, to go through fire. It was water, by the way, but to go through the fire for each other, that was a great experience.
So the feeling you got from seeing them benefit from your coaching and your leadership, it was satisfying, and it made you feel good. It's sort of rewarding, right? So it's interesting, you say that. I had in my teens some experiences with leadership, but I will tell you I was horrible at it. And my team eventually fired me because I was so awful. I was about 13 years old. So granted, I wasn't very good because I didn't grow up with good leadership sort of examples. And what I mean by that, in school, I was yelled at often by my teachers. In sports, I was yelled at by my coaches. So when I got the opportunity to lead, I thought that was the way, was to yell. So now I realize that cultures obviously play a big influence in the way you're brought up and subsequently sort of how you behave. So obviously you being in Belgium, what would you say sort of the difference are, in your opinion, between Belgium and US and sort of the leadership styles that you're having to deal with?
Well, I was lucky that I could compare it with each other, because I was then, when I was 26, the trainer and coach of the national water polo team in Belgium of women. And we played against the US. So they visited us in Belgium to prepare the World Championships. And we were the sparring partner. We always lost against the US. But I saw the different style there already. And we're talking about 30 years ago. But I must say, the discipline of US sports people is much higher than the discipline in Belgium at that moment. And I'm talking about water polo, swimming, but I also was talking about gymnastics, everything that I saw around me. They were so much more tough. And how they became so tough, I think the leaders, the trainers were also very tough. There was a kind of it was like in an army, I think. That was the difference. We were friends. I was friends with my 11 girls who are not my girlfriends, but sorry to say, but really, I was not tough enough, I think, if I think back.
Interesting.
Too friendly, too kind. I don't know.
That's interesting you say that. Yeah, because I think on the one hand, discipline, I think, is important. I've always struggled with trying to strike a balance, though, between being sort of too firm and not firm enough. And that's a difficult challenge for a lot of leaders or coaches, isn't it?
That's absolutely true, Antoine. And I was the first to, when I was that age, I was the youngest coach of the whole. We did the World Championship in Madrid, in Europe, the youngest of all. And that was my struggle. I was too soft, too kind. And the other, it was black or white in that moment in my head. For the moment, I am a non-dual coach, trainer, leader, because it's and. You can be and kind and firm. Say what you expect from them, and it's maybe 400 meters butterfly, because they have to gain more toughness. But say it in a way that you really expect it, that they do it, and it is as it is. Sometimes when I see people that you mentioned yourself yelling, and you have to do this now, then the motivation is going down. So the motivation is there. They are already there. So you can better be kind, and firm. And that's, for me, it is like you can be creative and you can have courage. It's not because only artists and they are creative and they have not the courage to start a business. Oh, no. That was maybe and 50 years ago. But today, I believe very strong in it is and creative and courage. It is and firm and kind, and it is enthusiastic and also empathic.
Got it.
That's possible.
Got it. So would you agree that there's parallels? You've coached sports teams, and then you have coached executives who aren't playing a physical game, but they are, um, on a team in a sense within an organization trying to achieve. So do you see a lot of parallels there as far as, despite the difference between a sport versus a business setting, that frankly, the fundamentals are still the same?
Well, what is the same with CEOs or people who are successful in the long run, not for 1 year or 2 years, but in the long run. They are also focused. They can stay focused. They can be persistent. They can be flexible as well. So they have a lot of qualities that an athlete also needs to cope with failure, with injuries, whatever, because it's not only growing, it's also sometimes failing. So that kind of personalities I meet also in the business. Biggest difference is, of course, an athlete doesn't have to lead other people, only himself or herself. And that's a big difference. And that's, I see when we're talking about managers, they have all the skills, they are bright mentally, they also know emotionally the purpose and spiritually where they want to go. But how to treat people that they outperform even, that's the biggest issue for them.
Got it. Okay. Now, you're a dad, you have 2 children, right? In their 30s. I'm a father as well. I have 2 boys as well, a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. What I find, I'm curious if you agree, that age of the people you're working with has impact on the area you need to work on. So, for example, with my children, again, they're very young, and motivation is an issue, meaning I might want him to be better at baseball, but if he doesn't want to be better at baseball, then he's probably not going to do well. Versus, would you say with adults or older teens, they already have the motivation. You're not forcing them to show up. They're showing you because they want to, and then instead it's the focus maybe on other areas. So would you say motivation, probably regardless of age, is a big impact, has a big influence, I should say?
Absolutely. It's true that motivation is key. And when you have internal motivation, and of course, I am the lucky one. They invite me as a coach to do a team building or to do a workshop together. They are already motivated, otherwise they don't hire me. I know. So I'm lucky. I know that because there are a lot of organizations who doesn't work with a coach or doesn't. They do a team building and they go just jumping out of trees or whatever, just having fun. But I do it more like sports guys. We connect with each other. We talk about what is driving us forward, what makes you happy, what makes you sad. So that's a big difference. So I can't really compare it, to be honest.
I see. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your business. What I'm going to do is I want to share my screen so everyone can sort of see, and I'll put links in the description of the video. So this is your website, and yes, I know you talk a lot here about sort of your methodology and some of the sessions you've held. Here's a picture of actually the one I participated in with you when we first met. And it looks like pace is a big part of sort of what you talk about. Can you just sort of explain what that is for everyone?
Yeah, pace coaching, that means 2 things. The word pace, we know in sports, that's the average that you can do if you run a marathon and you try to do it in 2 hours. You know that you have to run 21 kilometers an hour, 20.5. And to do this, you have to plan very strict and you have to be very disciplined to keep your pace. So, and if you translate this to business, it's the same. I know a lot of CEOs who run all the time sprints and then ending with a burnout. So the PACE is very important that you define that.
Mhm.
And then PACE is also an acronym. I don't
Right.
know acronym and
Yes.
yeah. So acronym for 4 words, and the first word starts with P of performance. We know everybody is hired to perform and even to outperform. And how do you do that? And the how is in an authentic way. That's the second word, authenticity. So
Yeah.
P-A-E is authenticity. The more authentic you can be as an individual in a team, the better you perform. The better is your motivation, the better is your integrity. Everything goes better when you can be authentic. So that's very important. Then the C of PACE stands for constructive self-talk. When you talk with yourself and you will say always like, oh my God, I can't make this, or this is impossible for me, or the last time I failed again, and forget it. So constructive self-talk makes also that you are constructive in the connection with others, that you also stimulate each other to think in the future. So that is what I mean, future-proof, solution-oriented talking and thinking. That's constructive to make you perform better. And then the E stands for enthusiasm. So when you have a team who is not enthusiastic, they're going to lose. And that's certainly in the sports world like this. Even the last minute when you still have one goal to make to get it even, or in basketball, the last minute, maybe often there is the win or lose, to win or lose a match. So enthusiasm is very important also during failure.
Mhm.
And then if you can, and that's my coaching methodology that I developed myself, is this guy authentic? Is he or she constructive in her thinking and enthusiastic? And can we use this as a kind of a standard and say, look, that can be better, and under these 3 things to perform better, because performance, of course, is key. Voila. And that's in a nutshell how I work with PACE.
Okay, so I love this. I want to drill down on some of these a little bit more deeply. Now, you mentioned earlier when we talked about motivation that if an organization has hired you, then that must mean they want help. But I'm wondering, I think, in our case, the executive team that participated, we unanimously sort of agreed we wanted to do this. And I know it felt really good. But I know that, just speaking from personal experience, maybe when I was younger, I was in a different place in my life. Maybe I would have resisted this type of session, this type of program. So I wouldn't have had the enthusiasm, let's say, to participate. Can you talk a little bit about, have you had any experiences where you encountered maybe somebody like me when I was younger, when maybe I wasn't open to this type of training? Maybe I resisted. And how did you overcome that?
Okay, so I will try to answer this in 2 phases. One, the life before COVID, that I had this sometimes, not often, but sometimes, and some people, some 1 or 2 people resisted in a group of 10. I never force it. I just ask those guys, look, can you please participate in the way that you want, not talking and discussing with us maybe, but just observing. That's also nice. Or do you prefer to go for a walk outside? And then they always choose to perform, to be there as an observer. And after 30 minutes, this is no problem anymore. So I never had someone who stayed against. The resistance always went. That was life, easy. But then COVID came and I launched digital team building, and I had before intake with the leader, the manager, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I must say, in Belgium, it's only the government that took it till now, except one private organization who is already a client. So no other private organizations took the chance. It was only the government, Flemish government, that's a part of Belgium. And then I had a talk with the manager, and he said, Wim, you will feel a lot of resistance. They hate Zoom and they hate
right.
Teams for the moment. And now we're doing a Zoom for 3 hours. What? How can you do this? 3
Right,
hours. And so
right.
I had to explain them what we would do. And if you're interested, I can do it in 1 minute, what we did.
Yes, let's take a look at that real quick. And again, I'll share my screen one more time because I know that you have a dedicated section of your website that talks about digital team building. And obviously COVID really affected us globally on so many different levels, and
Yeah.
companies and families had to learn how to adapt and still sort of get things done. So yeah, talk to me about how you adapted your business and created digital sort of programs that could sort of continue your training despite the social distancing.
Exactly. Well, that's what you see here. It's my own smart. That's an electric one, and the number plate pace was still free in Belgium, so I was lucky bird because you can order that when you pay extra. You can
Right,
have a personalized
right.
number plate, and I'm standing there between the deux chevaux, they call it. I don't know how do you say it in English. That type of old timers cars.
Okay.
And that's the place where I also do my live trainings when we go outdoor.
Oh, okay.
And that I wanted to make the link with the video, what you show now. Look, okay, with 7 or 10 or 15 people on one screen, how will you then give these people also the feeling of energy and enthusiasm?
Right.
And I do it because I cut it in pieces. We do 50 minutes talking about authenticity. And the question I asked, tell me your story, what you had the best benefit of homework, working from home versus working at the office, the best benefit, and also what you miss most. And they had to prepare it. And then the manager agreed to me, oh, that could be interesting because that's in Dutch, of course, authenticity. That's very authentic when they can say, look, it's almost as I sit here now that I see you with the flowers,
Right.
but
Right.
that's my desk. But you see, this is really authentic. They see me also as I am, as you see me now as I am.
Right.
And the answers of the people, that was a start to go for the next level. After 50 minutes, I also do some exercises to make their wrists a bit
Oh,
loose.
sure.
And
Okay.
so breathing exercises, breathing, and then you see they close their eyes all, and then I do a screenshot and I send it. So all those things makes it also fun. So authenticity. And then we took a break of 10 minutes that they could go to the toilet, they could go for a coffee and come back. And then I do again a focus on a breathing exercise. Breathing and telling them the way we breathe, very slow, will improve your focus and your concentration. And they feel it right at that moment. And then we do the second part, 50 minutes, constructive thinking. And we take then a challenge. What is in your, and then in the government was easy. Who is the other party that you have most conflict with? Think about Lancuni, confrontation, conflict, level 2.
Right.
And guess what they answered me? All of them. The IT. We asked something IT, we need this or this, and they were communication or they were finance or salary or whatever. And the IT is always too late, too slow, and they promise things, they don't do it. And then we took that case. How will you now deal the next meeting with IT in a constructive way? And then I'm as a teacher, I teach them to do it in a positive formulation, positive wording. So if that doesn't go, what can you give me then and when?
Yeah.
I appreciate you're doing well, but tell me very concrete. And so on. So that's constructive thing. And then, of course, they were happy. They had a kind of a solution with someone from outside who said, look, you can try it like this. And the last thing was enthusiasm. After, again, a breathing exercise and also 10 minutes. So the last 15 minutes of concentration in that digital team building was enthusiasm. But what about team spirit? what are the issues that you like to do together, and you miss it now, of course. This is really, tell me what brings you to a level of enthusiasm, also privately. And then I heard the football, looking at the football, and maybe we can go together. Ah, yeah, we can do this. Or someone was playing guitar and showed the guitar, and I was, because I invited them also to do the personal things, because they were all at home. And they get, the enthusiasm was raising at the end. And then, of course, we could conclude with what will be now the action, because this is really my goal when I start with something. Awareness, Antoine, you know that also it comes quite fast. We are aware that this is nice, this is interesting stuff. We have to talk more informal with each other. They are all aware of this. The thing is, how will we organize this? And then I let them become buddies. Antoine with Wim, also when we are 7,000 kilometers from each other, but we can have at least every Friday evening, we drink a glass of water together and we chat a little bit. And you tell me, what did you achieve this week? And I did it. And, so the buddy system, everybody knows it, but nobody does it. And I installed it in all the teams, and they seem to be successful, but they book me again.
That's great. Now, you've mentioned authenticity quite a few times. I know it's the letter A in PACE. And for me, that one really means a lot to me because it's one of my personal values as well. Before we started recording, I know I told you how there's only one version of me, and I don't have time to pretend to be somebody else. But there was a time in my life where I did feel like I had to put on sort of a different face, or maybe act differently at work than I would have normally, and it was quite laborious and tiresome. So I'm just curious, have you ever worked with anyone maybe that was in a similar place, and how did you get them to let go of sort of that fear of being authentic? Because it's risky, right? Executives and probably just people in general are a little nervous to be authentic because it makes them vulnerable, right? Maybe they're feeling sad or and they're afraid to show that.
Well, Antoine, you read my mind, because I just want to mention vulnerability is hard. And you in the US, you have someone, Brené Brown, who is giving a very nice TED talk about that. Also, her book is very interesting, Brené Brown, because she knows that it's based on fear, of course. When I don't know if you recognize it, that you fear to fail because you have not a tie on, or you. So that's one part of it. And secondly, also I worked with people who, keeping up the appearances, is it right in English? And it's always like, it's not only the clothes, but also the smile. It was not always authentic. And I was working with those guys, and that is the most difficult part to learn. When you are a natural leader, you have no fear. And natural leaders, of course, they need other skills and training to become also effective leaders. But when you're a natural one, you make mistakes. That's okay. And I could use that argument to those people, like, maybe you're not a natural talent in this. You are an expert in chemicals, and they put you on the position to lead a team of 10 people. Isn't it hard? Yeah, that's true. That's hard. I said, look, you can teach me chemicals. I will never have it under control like you do, but I can teach you that. How authenticity can work. And that was always, and then this is really very simple, small steps. So not from day one, the tie off and then go with your t-shirt and look, hey guys, and don't shave you anymore. No. No. Step by step.
So you said something there I wanna ask about. You said natural born leaders or natural leaders. Let's talk about that. So in America, they say, there's an argument you're either born a leader or you're not. And I'm just curious your opinion. I obviously have my opinion. I think there's people that are born with certain qualities that make you a good leader, but
Mhm.
I do not believe that there's any born leaders. You know, it takes training, it takes experience, it takes, you know, work. So would you agree or disagree when it comes to the notion of natural born leaders?
I agree with you that you have to work on it. And you see the real great leaders. And I don't know how the status of Elon Musk today is in the States, but here in Europe, everybody's looking at him as a star, as a rock star, but also as a very smart and bright leader, because he can bring people to a level that NASA or NASA
Right. Yeah,
never.
NASA, for sure.
And they were paid enough. That was not about money. It was not about motivation, but because those guys, they were motivated, they were well paid, but he did something different. And why do the guys, all those engineers, did it differently? Because Elon Musk, he developed his skills as a leader as well,
Right.
and he's
Right.
doing a great job.
Yeah, I love the example of Elon Musk and SpaceX. And I'm curious if you agree. I think what's unique about him and some other of the more sort of successful leaders that we look at as examples, Steve Jobs, for example, is
Mm.
another one that comes to mind. Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson. Would you agree, if you're a fan of Simon Sinek, you know, start with why? It's because they are inspirational leaders. They are inspiring their teams to perform versus leading by authority. So do you see that difference, and do you agree or disagree? Maybe that's what it is about Elon Musk and others like him, leading by inspiration versus leading by
Mhm.
authority.
Well, I like the names you mentioned also because they're all different in style. When you talk about Steve Jobs, was he a good leader in the beginning? No. People were running away from him, crying loud, and so on. So it was, yeah, he had to learn about it. He was smart enough to do it, and he was charismatic in a way. The speeches he gave that's world famous still
Right,
now.
right,
And that was another style. And also he built up from nothing, Apple, and Apple was calling back because they needed a leader and they had a manager.
yeah,
So
yeah,
this is for me very clear that they have to develop all their own style. And I think I'm quite sure here in Belgium, it's more and more they have a coach or a trainer or both, and they read about psychology. And also my clients are reading about positive psychology, which is in the States already 20 years well known, or 30. Well, they start now here as well.
So that leads me to one of the questions I wanted to ask you. You've mentioned books a few times, and I want to go back to your website in a second. I saw you had one there that looked familiar. Can you think of, you know, maybe two or three, or even just one inspirational books that you read that you really benefited from, what you learned from it, and, you know, is it something you would recommend to others?
Well, that mental toughness book that is really to create your own discipline. This is something that was also for me very inspiring, and I can recognize it because it has to do with sports. It's the executive toughness. Yeah, I call
Okay.
it mental toughness. But here they use also from sports examples, but they really make kind of a recipe to you, a morning routine or a noon routine or whatever, to keep your day, to keep you focused during the day. So that's one book that's for me was a start. And then I have completely different something else. I don't know, The Iceman. Does it say something to you? I don't know the audience, but I really recommend you to Google the Iceman and then Wim Hof. And Wim, it's double.
Oh, sure. I know Wim Hof. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Wim Rombaut. He's Wim Hof.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah.
he has millions of views on LinkedIn.
Right.
And I'm doing his routine every morning. So I have my own practice with ZEST. That I do Zen training.
Okay.
But the really training of Wim Hof is to become more powerful, to start your day with breathing exercise, so it's quite tough. I like it.
Okay.
Voilà.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because I remember when we did our sessions together in Belgium, there was breathing techniques we did and exercises that we did. And I remember at one point we all had to stand sort of in a karate pose. We all had to sort of shout or like, make really loud noise where we were getting sort of all the air out, all the stress out. So it's a perfect segue to talk about ZEST perhaps. So can you talk a little bit about, the breathing, ZEST in general, what is that, dealing with stress, and sort of, again, the exercises that you incorporate into the program to help with stress?
Well, yes, the zest was the inspiration for me, that you don't need a lot of zest of citrus fruit to have a good taste and to make tea, to make essential oils. It's all very healthy stuff, zest.
Okay.
And it's very strong stuff. And with a little bit of this, you can become more healthy, more happy. That's the idea. And the ZEST method is, again, 4 words in the beginning, but now I make it very easy: Zen training. It's about training to become more Zen, and Zen stays for focused and relax.
Okay.
And the methodology that I'm doing this personally is also, again, physical, emotional, and rational. It's the same with the same sources of energy that I use in PACE. Here it is more a training, and the training is how to breathe, and you learn to breathe slower. I ask always the audience is, how many times do you think we breathe in a minute?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Antoine, what do you think?
Probably not enough. I think we probably need to breathe a little more.
Oh, I don't know, per minute. So the frequency of your breath per minute, inhale, exhale, that's 1 cycle.
30 breaths per minute, maybe, I'm guessing.
Okay. When you did a sprint, yes. Then you do 30, then when you're working at your computer, we have a lot of data about that, and it's between 12, 13, and 15 or more. Depends on your stress level. And there we come. De-stress with ZEST is to bring down, via the physical thing that you do your decision in your head. I am going to breathe slower, so less frequent in a minute. And I bring it with my audience to first lesson already, 6 times a minute. And when you look at Apple, we were talking about Steve Jobs. I have the Apple Watch.
Right.
There is a tool where you say, look, breathing, 1 minute breathing, and 4 times inhale, 6 counts, exhale. That's 10 seconds.
Right.
Then you breathe 6 times in a minute, and then you can see at your app, a health app on your smartphone, that your heart variability, so the variation of time between every heartbeat, goes up. And that means that you become more calm. You have in the States also the HeartMath Institute, HeartMath in San Francisco. So that's about also how is your heart reacting between every beat. Is it also variability? Is there a high, the levels are different, and they call it heart coherence. And you can really measure those data when you do the ZEST method, and you bring down in the 4th lesson, when you do 4 lessons, I have also a course, Start to ZEST. You have Start to Run, but Start to ZEST. And the 4th week, we do 4 counts per minute. So it is 4 counts inhale, keep the breath in, hold it, Then 4 out, exhale, And for all that 16 counts, do it 4 times, 64. You have to 4 times in a minute that you breathe. And that brings your heart rate down, your blood pressure down, your heart variability higher. And that gives you more control.
Right.
And sometimes a CEO is very thankful, very grateful, and say, oh, wow, I didn't even heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the audience heard about it, or yoga, mindfulness, all those things use the same techniques. With me, I try to bring it in on a very easy way to do, accessible for everyone.
Yeah. So would you say that stress is one of the major reasons why maybe we won't or can't achieve optimal sort of performance and well-being, because something is affecting us, is creating stress, and our inability to deal with it, again, affects our performance? Would you say that that's the number one reason why maybe?
So most of the time, it's the number one reason, I'm sure. You have also context, circumstances that can work against you. But if it comes to you, your own ability, you are smart, or you are experienced in a certain domain, so you want to go forward in this. And stress, when it works in a negative way, because you can't handle it, breathing is one thing, and it's only the outside. The inside is constructive thinking, and then we are at pace again. I teach people really to have positive self-talk when they do the exercise. And then you have 2 times win. So, wow, I'm doing well. 4 counts inhale, it's lightness. 6 counts exhale, it's away, let it go. And when people have a problem with stress, I can't let go. I can't sleep because I can't let go. and this is really, in the lessons I do, it's 1 hour lessons, 4 times, really counting, and then let go.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to do.
Now, you mentioned the Apple Watch, and I know there's fitness trackers. You know, I think there's quite a bit of technology that helps us, but there's a negative side to technology as well. And I'm just wondering your thoughts on that, and again, the effects it has on your stress levels. So, for example, yes, I can use my Apple product to track my steps, my breathing, my sleeping, which all should help with managing stress. But the reality is, I also am looking at my email and the stock market and things going on in the world, climate change, all this negative sort of information. What are your thoughts regarding technology and the role it plays on stress, creating stress and managing stress?
Okay, I do not agree that technology creates stress, because it's how you deal with the technology that creates stress. That you look, if now on my watch I see a message, or feel it, and it was only a bit more than 24 hours ago, I felt a message, and I was mountain biking. And I saw, oh, it's my son-in-law. That must be very important, because it's Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. That's not normal. Guess what happened?
Yeah, tell us.
I saw my grandson live. He was born.
That's right. Yes.
My daughter was pregnant, and I didn't expect it because it was a week too early, theoretically.
Yeah.
But look, this is for me. Then when this is what's such a great moment, and I could take my iPhone and look at them. But really, sometimes it's not funny to feel that, and I can also decide not to have the pop whatever not from every program, but my mails I feel it, and WhatsApp I feel it. All the rest I don't allow it.
Got it.
And so I deal with it when it's not interesting and when it's disturbing me. But I know, Antoine, a lot of people react on the technology is making our life more complex and more sad, because all the sad news. It's up to you. I have no television set anymore. I only follow the news when I have the time, and I push the button, and you can do all television programs via your computer. So
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
that's what I do. So you organize yourself differently,
I see.
and then you cope with decisions that you made.
I see.
That's my recipe.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think we ultimately have the control, right? It's not the technology itself, it's the way we interact with it and how much we choose to let it sort of influence us or affect us is not. So you mentioned there, again, you got this great news yesterday. Your son-in-law messaged you. Looks like your daughter had a baby. So talk a little bit about your family life. And I know you said you have a son and a daughter. Your daughter just had this baby, your first grandchild, but then you also have a son who I think lives in Paris. Can you tell me a little bit about your family life and, what your kids are up to?
Well, my two kids, my son is 33, my daughter 31, and they grew up, in a happy context family, doing a lot of sports. I was a swimmer, but I let them choose. So my daughter did gymnastics and basketball, and my son did gymnastics, and they became then together they are champions in aerobics. So they did a duo aerobics, and when they 13 and 11 they were champion in Belgium and so on. So they really grew up with a lot of sports and a lot of discipline in that. But then when they became older, they also go to parties, and they and I gave them also the freedom to check things and to experience things. But in the end, my son said, wait, I'm 19, I'm going to Barcelona. And it was a study program that you could do at university. And there he stayed in Barcelona, and he said, I don't come back home, Daddy. I'm going now to Paris. And then he was 20. So he's now living 13 years almost in Paris.
Oh, wow.
And he started working with a degree of economics, master degree in Brussels. But he started in the fashion business because that was his passion, but he wanted first to have his degree. And then, first working for bigger companies. The biggest was Lanvin. If there are fashionatas or fashionistas, Lanvin, it's quite a brand. And then he decided to raise his own brand, and that's my family name is the name of the brand. I didn't choose it; it was his choice. So it's Rombaut Shoes and Rombaut Fashions Shoes, and he's developing plant-based shoes because he is a vegan at heart. He knows really why he's doing that, and his purpose, his why, is to have sustainable, beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
And therefore he makes plant-based shoes, and he's eating also vegan. And then he has a second brand now because the standard is very high, the price as well. That's a little nice anecdote, but Grimes, the famous wife of Elon Musk, is wearing his boots like this.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and now he even offered the little one to walk in his shoes. So Mats is his name, Mats Rombaut. He produced a unique 3D printed shoes. It was the Cybertruck of Elon Musk who inspired my son to make these shoes. You can find him on Instagram, Rombaut shoes. Rombaut Paris, I think. Rombaut Paris shoes. So he's quite successful in this, but he had to fight his way up.
Sure.
It took him 10 years because in the beginning, vegan shoes, nobody was interested.
Right.
Nobody.
Yeah.
But he fights his way up, and of course, with a bit of mental training and help. And my daughter, she is now, a mother since not even 2 days. But she has a wine bar, and she's running a wine bar. And she has also a degree at the University of Communications, but she used those skills now to communicate with her clients.
Yeah.
And also it's bio wine. It's very natural wines or bio wines. It's also now in the States coming up. Huh?
Sure, that's right.
And my daughter and me, and then the circle is around, we followed together the education to become a sommelier.
Right.
And we did our exam in France, and really the Mecca, the really headquarters
Yeah.
of the wine in the world, and that was really amazing to pass those exams together. Yeah.
That's a perfect segue. I wanted to talk to you about the fact that you are a sommelier. So I know that's a very prestigious and sort of distinguished sort of, accomplishment. It's not easy to become a sommelier. And you said you did this with your daughter. You guys did it together. So talk to me about that. I didn't becoming a sommelier alone is fascinating, I think. But the fact that you were able to do it with your daughter simultaneously must have been a wonderful experience to share.
That's true. She saw us, my wife, by the ex-wife for the moment, but and me, we were used to drink some wine in the weekend with our dinner, and then my daughter Ona is her name. She when she was 12, she wanted already to smell it and to taste it. Hey, 12, no way, just smell it. Okay, but when she was 16, 17, she invited her friends who were boyfriends, but not in a relationship, but they were boys. And they like to cook. And they came to cook for us, the parents. And Papa, you will choose the wine, huh? Okay? So it was already very early that she was interested in wine. But she became a communication worker in one of my clients' companies. They were selling material for labs. So, but she didn't like it. And so she said, Papa, at a certain day, I want to start a wine bar. I said, oh, interesting. I love wine, but I had one course followed, a small one. I said, but you don't have a degree for that. And yeah, but I want to start it. Saying, and don't you mind I start with you then together for the education? Huh? Do you mean that? Oh, why not? Yeah, you know already more about it.
Yeah.
Then so we started 3 years in a row, every Monday evening, 4 hours, and in between we visited Bourgogne, we visited Champagne, we visited the regions in France because it's very France oriented.
Right.
All together, she started then the business when she was in her second year of the education, and now after 4 years, she has her master's degree on that, and me as well, because I studied then with her.
So again, it's a great story. So you just did it more for fun. You love wine personally, and this was an experience you could share with your daughter. This is part of her business, but you're not going to work at a restaurant as a sommelier. This is just something you do for fun, right?
I don't know, maybe when I'm 80. Okay. And but the biggest difference between my daughter and me is not the knowledge, because we studied a lot. Yeah. You have to study the geography also from Napa Valley, and I know now in San Francisco they make such great wines. Yeah. You know why? Because of the smog is covering the and so on. So it's amazing what you learn. Yeah. But her nose is 30 years younger than mine. Yeah. And she's her smelling and her memory that's connected with each other. It's much better. So she had a bit more points than me in the exam of smelling and tasting wine. But I was also passed. But that's the biggest difference. Yeah.
And it's so great that you could share that with your daughter. Again, your kids are older than mine. Mine are still younger, I should say, 13 and 9, but it is special, and definitely cherish those moments when you do things together with them as they start to get older. It's really beautiful. So Wim, listen, I know, again, you mentioned your daughter just had a baby. You're a granddad now. I don't want to keep you much longer. I really, really, really am grateful that you took the time to chat with me. I'm going to put links to your PACE program, ZEST, your son's shoe business, your daughter's, wine business in the description below, along with the link to your LinkedIn page. Before we wrap up, is there any last bit of sort of advice or guidance you can share with anyone watching regarding, following your dreams and helping be at peak performance?
Wow. I'm still overwhelmed by your generosity to share all those things, because my purpose is also, since I'm 17, I knew I want to make people not to make them better, they do it themselves, but really to inspire, to stimulate, to train, to teach, that they become the best version of themselves. If they like baseball or water polo or wine tasting, it's for me the same. And that's my purpose. And how I was not a born leader.
Yeah.
I was even a small guy when I was 12. I was the smallest of the class and so on. But how could I grow? And that's because I still had to believe. And I could believe in myself thanks to other people. My biggest mentor, Jeff Brouwers, who is the psychologist of the Belgium Olympic team. He was in Tokyo. He's 72 years old. I have people around me that inspire me and are leading me by example. And that's that one I want to share with you, Antoine, also as a father,
Yeah.
leading by example.
Yeah.
You don't have to say much. Huh?
Right. Yeah. I love it. I love it.
And so listen better. Maybe I find I talked a lot now, but I hope people can get inspired of that. But to become a better listener and to become a good interviewer, that's the rest of my days. I will work on that.
Yeah.
So I want to share that with you. So be courageous enough to be yourself and to work on your authenticity, and it will be a better life for everyone.
I love it, Wim. Very, very inspirational. And again, I'm grateful for you taking the time out to chat with me today. I really benefited from the conversation. I'm sure those that watch will enjoy it as well. Thanks again, Wim, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks you, and everyone have a good day and a good life. Bye.